How we doing with that?
Looking pretty darn good to me.
Yeah, isn't that great? I was licensed in '67, and right away I was interested in DX, talking to far away. And that first year, actually, with the first couple of months, I realized that you could do it a lot easier during contests. You didn't have to wade through all the pileups. And the really cool part is some of the rare stuff occasionally called you. So from there, it's been a journey of different houses, different installations. And I was on the island between the years of '93 and 2002, and then I moved to W4 land, and then decided to buy a KTH here, coming back for retirement in 2018. So the picture I have here is one of the multi-stations that I operated at when I was in the US. A good friend, Rick, NQ4I, this is him and his 8-element 20-meter beam on a 84-foot boom. Rick is a visionary, and where it says you don't have to be the loudest, Rick certainly wanted to be the loudest and went to great efforts to do that. So that's eight elements at 185 feet on Roan 55 towers. So it was, and Rick did all his own work as well. And we built that antenna and put it up. So I had a chance to use it a bit. Anyways, but that's not the focus of this. It's more like you don't have to be the loudest to enjoy it, because not many people can be that. So how do you enjoy contesting? Now, let me, as I'm slow on putting a down arrow on my next slide, and I don't seem to, there we go. I guess I scroll it that way. So I'm seeing the side panel here. Is it covering up some of the presentation?
That would be personal view, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Mine's fine. Mine, I have all the images just over on the side of the people.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Presentation shows.
Good, and I know some of you are accomplished contesters, and others don't know that much about it, and perhaps don't have the competitive spirit. But maybe I'll draw you in a little bit with this. And you know, Homo sapiens, they've been competitive since they've been around, either for food or mates or places to live. So why does amateur radio not get to be a competitive aspect to it as well? And really, for the success of contesting, the analogy you hear often is car racing. You need a good car, and you need a good driver to be ultimately successful. So what does winning look like if you're in the competition? Well, we just finished the CQ Worldwide, and I guess there's an argument that the single operator all band top score could be the winner. I mean, it's one guy, it's 48 hours, probably 48 hours straight at a very good station. So, but not everybody can do that. And I think what you have to do if you want to do this seriously or part-time is pick where your strengths are. What bands are open to you? What are you capable of? What does your rig allow you to do? So when I talked about the single up all band, that would be high power. But you could be low power, you could be QRP, and often as QRP, and we heard just getting through to ZD7, that's a good contact, and you know, those are kind of things that you treasure, and you understand propagation by playing in a lot of contests as well. It's a real education of what opens and how you get through under those situations. Some contesters do it for goals. You only have a few hours to participate. That's something, but get in there and have some fun. Some, like in the sweepstakes, for instance, their goal is to work all of these sections, so you get a clean sweep, and they collect mugs from it. So, you know, there's a lot of way to have your own fun, and ultimately you're usually stuck in a room by yourself trying to talk to people around the world. And what is it out of that situation that brings you joy? And for those people that aren't familiar with the concept of contesting, is you don't have to send in your log. You can make a few contacts and not do that, or you can. And if you do, it supports the analysis of all the contest post afterwards, but there is no obligation to do that. And if you look at trying to be the world's best from the West Coast, it's a challenge. This is off Solarham, but I look at that daily, and I know that Don posts it as well, or maybe it's posted on our site anyways. Maybe Andy does that. But it comes up and it shows this great vacuum cleaner over the magnetic North Pole, which really takes a lot of our signals out of Europe, even when the band is, potentially open. It's difficult getting through that. Fortunately, this last weekend it's been pretty good. So I was able to make some contacts through Europe, even on 10 meters. But if you can't do it globally, you can do it regionally. So who do you compete against, and how do you measure your success? And Pacific Northwest, we have our friends to the south in Washington, Oregon, and of course within BC, and then on the island here as well. But I think optimization of your station and antennas is one way that you can do that. And of course, in the background, you're working on your operating skills too, which everyone can improve at some point. Just in the concept of how much fun it is to operate from here, this is a snapshot of 10 meters a week before the contest. And what this is a picture from DX Maps. It takes all the activity that's going on 10 meters and shows where the contacts are being made, and also by the type of propagation that's being employed to make those contacts. But you can see that, throughout the US, throughout the Eastern Seaboard, even to California, they're all having a party, but we're kind of shut out of that. And this is how the worldwide starts as well, or perhaps next weekend or the weekend after, when the 10-meter contest. Everything is open before it comes to us. And when it does come to us, we can hear the US, but it's usually off the back of their beams. So it takes a little while to get that whole thing rolling. So what I'd like to talk to about today is the tools that we have. What tools are out there to make it fun and to understand your station and perhaps do better? So just having moved here from the Atlanta area, I went through a little bit of analysis to figure out where I wanted to be and what the station was going to look like. We'll go through a bit of that. And then the operating tools that we have, what makes it easy and fun, and a few things, suggestions of how you can look at your signal and compare with others. So knowing I was moving back to Vancouver Island and wanting mainly to compete with globally, there's local contests, there's Asian contests, but the big ones are usually global, and in order to do well in those, there's three areas that you have to be able to do well. One is into Japan, which is our strong suit. It's close, and it usually avoids the aurora. Europe, there's countless countries there. Well, not countless, but there's a lot of countries there, and a lot of operators, and very good operators. And similarly in the United States and into South America and the Caribbean. So those are really the areas that I think I need to focus on in order to do well in the contest. So I started looking for property that would kind of promote that on Vancouver Island before I bought in 2018. And I did find a property in Bowser. It was for sale and something I could afford. And you can see here that there's Hornby Island in the mountain right there. That's probably due north. But I had a look at this, and it seemed reasonable. The property was flat. There was a couple of cleared acres that I could put antennas in. And then I thought, well, okay, we'll have a look at that. And then also I'd like to compare with Dwayne, his station. Dwayne's station, if those not familiar with it, he has multiple towers, two rotatable ones, one at 170 feet and another at 150, and a forest of aluminum. And he's really the benchmark on Vancouver Island, probably BC for multis. So as I go through this, I'm comparing a little bit with what Dwayne's situation is as well. Of course, you like your signal to you like to be on top of a hill with your antenna sort of sloping down towards and maybe getting some kind of reflection that'll enhance your signal. And Dwayne has a good location up here, and so much if you look around where I have the VE7 UF, it's a little bit flatter. And really what the problem is on Vancouver Island is we've got these mountains that we're beaming into, making that more difficult than it would be otherwise. So having looked at a prospective location, the next step was to do a terrain analysis on it. So I got these things are available to HAMS. They're gives you very detailed. You put in your coordinates, and it'll tell you, what the terrain is around your QTH or proposed QTH in this case. So at the very top, if you look at this top left-hand corner slide, you can see what it looks like. The property isn't that high, but it slopes away very nicely to the north. So that's good. And I'll just go through these other ones quickly. And then as we go to Europe, you can see similarly, it's a nice takeoff, a little bump there. As we get to Southern Europe, similarly good. And then as we get due east, more towards the US and into Southern Africa, looks good. And then we start to get in a little bit of noise. Vancouver Island facing northwest and southeast, and a spine of mountains down it. You really expect to see this kind of thing. And then the last one that looks good here is the really Southern Caribbean into South America, and that's at 120 degrees from the QTH. And then you see the things that you're supposed to expect to see here, and that's the terrain is all up and down all over the place. Due south, Easter Island is down there, maybe Pitcairn, some of the South Pacific islands, but not a whole lot. But if you can look, we're going up a big hill and coming around. Yeah, there's ZL, New Zealand, Australia. So going to the west and southwest is not very good. But the key to the location is this one here, 300, which is Japan. And it's starting to get good, but it's not great. And then if you look at this one here, this 330, that's into Asiatic Russia. That's somewhat better. So in between those two, it's kind of okay. So I decided at this point that that's going to be the place we're going to live. So we bought the property and then started building. So here, once again, you can see these angles that I spoke of. Japan is right at 300, where it was a little bit bumpy, and 330 was the other one that was sort of, yeah. But over towards Europe and south, it looks really good. So once you have your property chosen and understanding the terrain, then you start to look at what kind of antennas you're going to build on there. And I brought 2 trailer loads of towers and antennas up with me. But then in order to marry that to the property, this is where the terrain analysis and your HFTA comes in. And this model, which has been around, it's in the ARRL handbook too, if you buy one of those and have one on site. You can put into what your antennas are, your proposed antennas, and it'll tell you how to design your antenna. And I'll show you that in just a second. But the inputs that you have here are over here on the terrain files. I've got the angle 315, which is just about at Japan. I wanted to look at that. The antennas, 5-element Yagis. Heights, I chose 3 heights, 115, 115 and 80, 115, 80, and 40. Those 3 combinations. And I use that from down here at the bottom. The elevation file is from Washington to Japan. There's nothing for VE7, so the closest we can get is Washington. And then you hit compute, and you get this. And this is kind of great because if you look at the potential for this, here's all the incoming angles that see it down here at the bottom on the x-axis, it's takeoff angles. It shows where it's coming in based on my terrain. So propagation from Japan comes along on these angles. And your antennas, you want to build them to take advantage of that. So by doing this modeling here, taking into account the detailed terrain analysis, it gives you a product of this. And you can look at the first antenna, which was 115 feet. It's this blue line. and it's pretty good. A reasonable figure of merit gain. Gain in that one's about 16 dBi. There's a couple nulls here, but if you start adding on the stack another antenna at 80 feet, it takes it up that much better. It also fills in this null here. So if you do have propagation with that angle coming in, that's where you start to see the difference. And then there's a third element there as well. So anyways, I've done this with each one of the elements on site here, each one of the antennas on site, and it gives you insight into, are you putting it in the right spot? Are you marrying it up? And what the expectations would be once you get it built. So that's all I'm going to do on the station part. I just wanted to introduce that because this is about tools and how to take advantage of it. I did have one more slide here. I'm sorry, I forgot about it. I put Europe down here as well. It's on the left. It's a new one. And you can see because the terrain is so much better towards Europe, the antennas don't have that humps and bumps in it. It's much more of a pure situation than the one with Japan over on the right. So the final, you'll sort of close the loop on that. Then you have to evaluate your signal versus the competition. The competition in this case is Dwayne. And Dwayne and I have been good friends since the, I guess, the mid-90s when we met. But I use him as the benchmark. And if I can get anywhere close to his station, I find that worthwhile. And from Sunday, here's a snapshot of 3 places in the world where we can look at our stations. This one here is in Scotland during Sunday, during the hours of 1500 to 1800. You can see that his station, this is the dB gains, this is how they're being received over there. He is significantly stronger than I am in this particular case. And then if we look over here at, this is Virginia on the right, it gives the signals a lot more, the band was open a lot longer, so we have more data points. But you can see my signal is kind of comparable in here. And so I'm kind of happy about the local conditions toward the US. And over here is Japan. This is a site in Japan when it was open to them. We're kind of mixed in here, but over here, once again, I'm a little bit less than what Dwayne's station is. So it lets you know that for the work you've done, where you kind of stand with this stuff. So now you understand your station, and time to enter the contest. So I think the people who are contesting are pretty familiar with these next few slides. A site from Bruce Horn, WA7BNM, and this is something that Glenn has talked to him as well to try to start the island contest. But this is where you find your data on ongoing contests. And this is an 8-day shot from Bruce's site. So if you click on Bruce's site and choose this week, it'll show you the days up here, these 8 days, and all of the contests that are going on. So whatever you enjoy doing, there's phone, there's CW ops, there's walk for the bacon. Actually, there's run for the bacon too. If you get into that, I'm not sure what that is, but the title always is. And but for the sake of today's presentation, I wanted to talk about we've been talking about the past weekend CQ Worldwide contest. If you select this one from Bruce's site, it shows you that it starts on Saturday and ends on Sunday. It's 48 hours long, and the best operators in the world will stay up 48 hours to do that whole thing. And often with 2 radios, 1 in each ear. It's quite the accomplishment these guys do. So you've chosen your contest. Now, if you click on that point, it'll bring this up, and it's the same for every one of the contests. It'll show you when the contest is at the top, where the geographical focus is, all of the classes that you can enter. So as an operator, you can be QRP, you can be low power, high power, classic. It's all kinds of categories you can fit yourself into if you're interested in competing at those. And like I said earlier, you can just go in for the fun and make a few contacts and have fun doing that. Maximum power, the exchange is important. You have to know what to send, what to receive, what to record. And then there's the point totals to tell you how to generate your score once you've participated in this. This is just a very brief overview, and if you're interested in entering a contest, go down to the rules here at the bottom. That is where you'll find the detailed part of it that you may overlook if you only do this part here. You might make a mistake and be DQ'd or something like that. So you found your contest, and now you have to use a program to operate it in. And N1MM has become very popular. I've really just gotten into it in a big way since moving back here to the West Coast, but it's really good. It's constantly updated by active contesters. Every week, if you're a member of N1MM, you get some kind of update for various contests. And it covers everything. Why I got away from WinTest and into this is that all the QSO parties, all these small contests, if you want to enter them, they're all in there and up to date, and it'll tell you what to do and how to do it. And I really enjoy that as well. As if there's no big contest on that I'm interested in the week, I'll get into a Virginia QSO party or Vermont or Prairies or something that's going on just to have a little bit of fun. It interfaces well with most equipment, and seeing as I did it, I think everybody else on the call today could do that as well. And for the things that I spoke of today, it's free. All of these things I'm speaking of are they're out there, common to everybody. You just have to log in and obtain them. And this one here, when you open up N1MM, this is very typical to what certainly the multi stations that I've operate at. They have this as kind of a standard layout. And I'll go through it because it's important. The bottom window here with VE7JK, hope you can see my cursor. That is your logging window. So as you're working guys and they're calling you and you're entering into your log, that's where you do all that activity. And the log is built up here of all the contacts you made immediately above that. But the tools that you have are considerable. Over here on the left is the band map. And if you look at the very top, the transceiver is at 7020.74. So I'm on 40 meters. I'm right about here near this UT7LW guy. But you can see the stations above me and below me in the band. And if you wanted, say, if your transceiver's here, you can pick one of these and immediately your transceiver will go there. So it really helps you if you want to chase down multipliers and DX or other stations you might want to contact. On the top, it's 40 meters, so it's showing the gray line where darkness is and where light is. So 40 meters being a nighttime band, you can see all of the stations that are kind of active. You can't really use these, but it gives you a sense of where the activity is taking place in the zone where 40 meters is active. And here, there's score. You can maneuver your score around where you want. Over here on the right is a list of all the multipliers you need. I haven't started a log yet, so everybody's a multiplier. But if you wanted to pick with your cursor off that, again, it's the same as the band map. It'll pull that guy right onto that frequency, and you can work them. And the neat part, and see, I've put in Brian's call here. I hope you don't mind, Brian, but I use that as a start just to demonstrate the super check partial. So if you're operating and you're not sure the guy that you're talking, you're typing in the guy's call, so you have VE7, you think it's JK. Over here on the right is a list of all the active contesters. And so within the database, it'll take those 5 characters, and say, these are your options. And it said, well, you might be missing a Z on the end. That's probably the case. Or you could have got one of these other letters wrong, and it marks it in red. So, for instance, if the J is right and the K is wrong, you might find that you're talking to Gabor down here, VE7JH, one of the good operators up at VE7 UF station. So all kinds of power and things that you can do with that. And this part here, V7KW, Keith was over dropping by on the way to Dwayne's on the weekend, asked me about that. So I thought I would just take a second to talk about clusters. There's clusters, I don't know, it might be 100 of them when you pick from the list, but many people, and not only Canadians, but globally, will use LEAD, VE7CC's cluster. And the cluster is all of the input coming from these worldwide skimmers and other people adding comments to it. It's all flowing here, and you can just see this stuff scrolling by the whole contest. But everything that goes into those other calculations that's filtered comes from this, and this is kind of the raw data. So I'm really used to seeing that scrolling by, and I get a lot of intel out of it. And if yourself get spotted, which you hope you do, it'll show in red, and you can see these go by as well. You can see, hey, I was spotted in Germany or China or something, and know that propagation is open. So that's another kind of tool that I find useful. And they take that same raw data, and DX Maps will make it, they'll tell you what's going on, similar to what I showed at the very start, where they had that little party on 10 meters and we were invited. This was later in the day, and I apologize for the quality of the slide, but I couldn't copy it because whenever I tried to make a snapshot of it, this red stuff would go away, so I took a picture of it instead. And it shows my signal here. I'm calling CQ, and it shows I'm being heard in Japan and all these sites around the US. So it's one more way of monitoring. Am I getting out? Are people hearing me? And it's kind of comforting when you know you're hitting a bunch of foreign sites. So now that you've got this big score and you want to post it and get recognized for your good achievements, 3830 is the place to do it. This isn't the official place you send your log, but it's the way that right after the contesters usually post their scores to show how they did during the contest, and also to make a lot of personal comments of how they saw the contest, how they did, if they had equipment failures or observations, or recognize participants that have come over to help them with their contest. So 3830scores.com will right up here, that'll put you to a site where you can enter your scores, and you would pick here CQDX contest if you wanted to submit a score. Those two sites there. And so this, like I said, this is only for showing your score. It's not the official place where you send your score. When it comes time to send your score, then you need to go back to the page of the rules, and right here above the rules in blue here, this is where you would send your log. I hope that's clear. And how to enter your score. On N1MM, you need to generate a Cabrillo file. And a Cabrillo file is really a common format that pretty much everyone has gone to, as far as this is the way we can put all the, evaluate, but from the contest sponsor's perspective, they need to collect all the logs. And once you've done that, you need to compare all the logs and verify every contact that's being claimed and made. And in order to do that, you need to put it in a format that's common. So Cabrillo file is the way to do that. And I found that Cabrillo comes from, when we were down in San Diego, it's from Captain Cabrillo. You didn't know there's a fun fact. It came from, this is from San Diego Harbor, by the way, earlier this year, when I made a special trip to the Cabrillo Monument to have a look at that. So that kind of wraps up all this tool talk. I like Tim the Tool Man. My own personal contest plans, I really do like the CW contest. I must admit I had fun in the SSB. They just had the sweepstakes contest, and that was a lot of fun on phone. As I now have, as of last week, a digital voice keyer, I may be able to enter a few more phone contests than I have. But every week, there's a CW Ops that promotes CW throughout the hobby. They have a competition. They're hour-long, really fast, and really fun. But there's also state QSO parties. So most every weekend, I'll be on doing something and hopefully generating a little bit of activity. The state QSO parties, say if you are from Vermont, for example, their multipliers will often be number of states or number of provinces. And quite commonly, they don't have the BC multiplier. So by doing this, you're giving them a multiplier they may not have otherwise. And people are usually most appreciative of the activity when you participate. So that's kind of the end of where I am with the presentation. I guess I can. Do you want me to stop sharing now and where we go from that?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. That was fabulous. And I know some of you, what do we got? We got 18 members here, I think, which is great. Some of you come in a little bit later. Don't worry, Andy has recorded it, and it will have a link up on the website, which is great. Great to see Keith here this evening. Nice to see you. And yeah, who else jumped in here? Anyways, once again, thanks for all joining. Any questions? Any questions for Jim? Please go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jim. Just a couple of observations. You're very fortunate to be able to, I guess, have the choice of finding a QTH that's absolutely going to be suitable for what you want to do. I guess I'm like many of us, you find a QTH which is acceptable to the XYL, and then you look around and you say, okay, well, now what can I do in the way of an antenna, which is, you know, what I and most of us are faced with. So congrats on that. Anyway, just a couple of things. You mentioned you don't have to send in a log, but I would recommend that you always do, because you never know. For example, a couple of months ago, there was a Japanese CW contest. I guess it's the Keyman's Club of Japan, and the propagation was absolutely awful. I got up around sunrise, and all I managed, I think, was something like 4 QSOs with Japan. And then on and off through the rest of the day, I heard absolutely nothing. But I sent in a log, and then, much to my surprise, received a very nice certificate via email saying that I was the leading station in Canada.
Wow.
So there you go. 4 contacts, and I'm numero uno in Canada. So actually, I would say always send in a log. You never know. Okay, my next thing is really an observation and perhaps a question for you, Jim. I often find, as I did this past weekend, that when working Europe through the Aurora zone, it's very hard to copy a lot of the CW stations that insist on sending at about 35 or 40 words a minute. Now, if the signals were clean, I could probably just about copy the call sign. But, you know, when they're sending at that speed and it's coming through the Aurora zone and it gets all of this Arctic flutter and distortion, it's almost impossible to copy the call sign. And yet they keep sending at that speed. Nobody goes back to them, because I guess a lot of other people can't copy them. So you really have to wonder what's going on the other side of the pond. So I just wondered if that's your experience, Jim, with these Europeans and their high-speed CW. So again, thanks, and back to you.
Yeah, no, it can be so, and conditions were such on 10 meters that activity was there, as you mentioned. And I find it thrilling when, you know, you're talking to Japanese and all of a sudden Scandinavians start coming through with that type of thing. LN8W is a big one. Last year and this year as well. He called in. And you just don't expect it. You know, it's well into the early hours in Europe, and everything else is shut down. There's nothing showing as propagation, but yet there they are. And he calls at such a rate. I guess what I often use in assistance is because I've done so much multi-work, I find most of my activity is, rather than searching myself, is using the clusters to find much of the activity. Of course, when people call you, you're obligated to get it correctly, but oftentimes, you know, people are going very fast, and that's apparently that guy, right? And then you look for your call to come back, then hoping you recognize it as being okay. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. It can be so.
Yeah, okay.
And I can add to that, because for the first time ever, I used a spotting site or a skimming site in the CW contest. And knowing what the call sign could be really helped for my ear to decode the flutter.
Yep. You mentioned a good point there, Alan. that stuff that's scrolling by that's telling you where all the activity is, it's not 100% correct. And it's gotten better, but say it's 90 or 95% correct now. But it's your obligation to hear that call and to log it correctly, because often it'll be off by a letter. And there was some chatter before the contest about some people's CW being truncated at the start. And AA7A was that the whole weekend. His first bit was missing, and I kept having TA7A pop up all weekend long. I kept getting rid of it. But obviously there wasn't that delay, that whether it was latency or whatever, I'm not sure, but only part of the call was being registered by the skimmer side.
Any other questions, comments?
I would like to say something. I am a sideband operator because I have not yet gained my CW skills, but I have operated at Dwayne's home, Victor Echo 7, yeah, Uniform Foxtrot, and I have worked with Gabor, Victor Echo 7, Yankee Alpha Hotel, and I have learned immensely from them. I've been a ham for 5 years. I'm at the low end. I do contesting not for competition points or getting anywhere. I do it because I love to hear where I can contact and the results I get. And being a YL, I just absolutely love when I can break a pile up. That's my advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah, so doing last year over the Christmas period at Dwayne's house, doing a competition on sideband, there were 3 YLs and we did great. We were #1 in Canada and probably #2 in the world. And I attended the CW contest this weekend just to observe what was happening. Not that I can do CW, but I was so immensely impressed by the skills, the management, and what happened. And as I said, Gabor's skills with N1MM, I thought I knew N1MM, but boy, he blew my mind out of the water. It was fantastic. So I am working on CW. Maybe in a 5 years time period, I can get up there and try to contest with you guys. But I'm the sideband girl, Yankee Alpha Hotel.
Yeah, I remember when you were there. But there are a number of them. I keep using Dwayne's QTH, and Gabor is on the call, and Keith, and both of them were active this weekend from US, and they did very well there too. So yeah, I can't say enough about Dwayne, because he's really promoted contesting by having that site there. He's enabled people to go up, and the thing about being at a big site like that is you are popular, and you do have that loud signal, and people are calling you. So it's one thing to call people, but it's a whole other management process to hear people and do that in a fast and efficient way. And really, that's where you separate the good operators, is to get that call and to log it and to move on to the next one.
We're going to
Yes.
have to invite Dwayne to get on one of these Zoom calls and
Yeah.
have him introduce us to his station, so we all start salivating to get up there and have a go at things. So maybe I'll work on that. Mr. Erskine, you had a question.
I did.
Can you
Hi,
can you
Jim.
remember it?
Yeah, I'm working on it. Thanks, Jim. I'm a phone contester. 100 watts in the car, monoband whips, and given her most of the weekends that there's a phone contest on. The question I had was about the some of the profiles. You had the results there. After you'd hit the compute button, and there was the bar graph at the bottom, and then there were the curving one. I hope I'm doing this right direction for everybody. And then the other part of the camel, there were some curves, colored curves, the same as for the various setups on the right side of the screen, and I just didn't pick up what those were. That's one of the 2 questions regarding that.
You want me to go back to that slide?
I don't know, Glenn. What do you
Yeah,
think?
sure, absolutely.
Okay. Share. So how was it back where I was showing antennas, or was it something else?
Probably antenna. Yeah. Okay. Here. So so the bar graphs underneath, the colored bits, the graphs on the left. I've got a general idea of all that. The ones on the right, on both of these ones, what's that referring to?
Well, it comes down to where you're sending your signal and where it's going to. So ideally, the maximum amount of your signal is going in the range where communication is taking place.
Right.
If you use this blue line here, I don't know, maybe half of it, if you integrate the area under here, maybe half of it is useless energy.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is a much better situation with the green line here because most of it is covered over the usable area or usable points where you can communicate, and the rest it kind of drops off. But so often you'll end up, using a lot of power and not much of it ends up going where you want it to go.
Okay. The other part, we could stay here, is that I didn't fully comprehend the 1, 2, and 3 foot measurements, and I'm guessing they are adding an antenna, adding another antenna.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Are they?
what I did here was I brought a lot of tower with me, and my
Right.
thought was because I had 3 tri-banders that I would stack them all on one tower. So one over another. So there's 3 of them on the same tower. The top one rotates, the middle one rotates a bit, and the bottom one is either fixed with Europe or Japan.
Okay. So they're not phased or?
Yeah, they are phased together. So I can select either any of these or any combination of those.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Yeah. It's
Great question. Great answer. Any other questions, comments? Andy?
Oh, just to comment, I love the presentation. It's, I think, the most professional amateur radio presentation I've ever heard, I think.
Yeah, me too.
So bravo for that. I just wanted to reassure, this is talking about the very high end of the sport. And those of us who are shuffle around at ground level also can have a good time. And all of us know that, but I just want to Tony has just joined 2 days ago, just got his license very recently. So I just wanted to reassure him that you can have fun with 100 watts in a dipole and spend, stay up all night or work 2 days, whatever, and feel very proud of your modest score because you had a hell of a lot of fun doing it. So there's room at the bottom as well as at the top to have fun with this hobby.
Yeah, and I'm going to say a lot of guys who come out to the coffee meet we have down here in Victoria, they tell tall tales, Tony. So don't believe them. Honestly, it's
Come on.
yeah, yeah. That's a very interesting comment, Andy, and how true. Yeah, Don, did you have your hand up there?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to say thanks to Jim for a great presentation, and I think one of the hard things about contesting is how to learn this. I wanted to ask, Jim. I've got a couple of comments and questions, but so Jim, in general, how would you say you learned the stuff that you need that you now know about contesting and what you do? Did you ever, for example, do Contest University at Dayton or any of those training opportunities?
No, I haven't been to that. I'm very familiar with it and a lot of the presenters, but I haven't attended that. No.
So you learned, like the rest of us, maybe just by trying and doing, or knowing people, or.
Yeah, I guess in my formative years, being around a long time, in the 60s when I started doing this, I sort of salivated over DX and good scores. And when I bought my first house in 1979 in Thunder Bay, by the way, I started putting up some towers. And back in those days, you sent all the code by hand. There was no F1. There was none of that stuff. All logging was done by hand. All the duplication, to check, you had to do that all by hand on sheets. And gradually through the years, the technology got better and better and better. And like you see so many of these hockey stick graphs, it's exponential right now. There's so many wonderful tools that we can use. But in that period of time where I didn't know what I didn't know, I traveled to Southern Ontario because Thunder Bay wasn't and still isn't a hotbed of contesting. But there's so many good operators and stations in Toronto that I attended those multis and got to know a lot of friends, a lot of very good friends to this day. And that's where I really started to get the relationships and understanding of what the potential is and how to operate and what the expectations of that would be, Don.
Yeah.
Does that answer
Yeah,
the question?
yeah, and I think that's one of the problems with contesting sometimes is that we're all kind of on our own, and so we don't get together that much. Orca has been a great the Orca Club in in Vancouver and BC is if anybody's new to it, I recommend the website and the association if you can get over there to have to have lunch with some of those people, and also the annual sort of summer Northwest DX convention is always a learning experience. I was very fortunate. I wanted to say that I was very fortunate to have been invited over the past few years up to V7UF, and I couldn't do it this time, but I did appreciate the invitation, and I commend the work there, Gabor and Keith and of course Dwayne and the people who get up there. That was a great learning experience for me, and if there's an opportunity that they have an opening for anybody to go up there, I do very much recommend taking advantage of that opportunity. Terrific to hang out with some of the well, I refer to some of the people here like Keith and Gabor and Jim as amateur radio royalty in our country. So this is great, and some of the people like Keith have been on DXpeditions, and we have our DXing friend up in Denman, Steve Wright, V7 Charlie Tango. So the more you can hang out with those guys and talk about what they're doing, the more you can learn. So I do very much appreciate that. So I was curious, Jim, you 10 meters you ran only in the 10 meter thing for the CQ Worldwide CW. Just out of interest, was that all you were running all the time, or did you do any search impounds at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. What percentage would you say?
Probably 30% on the second radio. If you recall, I don't know, it's sort of a detail that I noticed when I did the reverse beacon. In the end of the contest, you could see that whoever was operating at Dwayne's station was on 10 meters pointing to Japan, and their signal was quite a bit stronger. On the other hand, mine was quite a bit stronger to the US. So what was happening in that period of time is I was calling CQ at the end of the contest. The rate isn't great, but it was better to the States than it was to Japan. So my strategy at that point was try to maximize the run into the States, and then every JA that popped up or every Chinese station that popped up as a new contact, I would hunt him down with the other radio in between what I was doing. So actively, there's two radios going all the time.
Yeah.
But the key to that is you can't transmit simultaneously. You must always only have one transmitter, so you have to be locked out so that you don't overstep yourself and transmit, two transmitters at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yep.
Back to you,
again.
Thanks. Mr. Erskine.
Taking something from the title of the presentation, I got thinking about what works for me in my little station setup. And the reason I use it is because I'm stuck in an apartment. And there's no club station I can muck in with. But I had a number of stations comment on, I'll take the broadcast station next kind of thing. And I'd work with them. And if there was a sliver moment in there, it was really nice to hear this confirmation after all the search and pounds calling that I'd been doing, trying to get somebody in the sweepstakes somewhere in Canada that I hadn't worked yet, or any other section. And I said, it was really nice to get a confirmation of the audio. And I said, I'm a mobile. And he goes, you hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known. And so one of the
Mhm.
things that's worked for me in the last year and a half was tweaking settings to some extent, or not constantly, but as soon as I got something that worked, I just sort of welded it in place. And using a stock mic, things have been really good. So that and other tools of the trade, usually operating technique, have been what's helped me work with a 100-watt Omni antenna, no gain, negative gain antenna situation. So you don't have to be the strongest RF signal, but you can still be present, which is really neat.
And have fun. There's a
Fun.
station, the station in the CW Ops that hourly contest, John N6HI, and he's on there every week. And it's just a joy. He's running a half a watt to a wire outside his window from a balcony. And it's just, I mean, it's a thrill for me and it's a thrill for him, right? Every time he makes the contact. So fun's where you find it.
Les and I have talked about this too, but the search and pounce. If you're running, I run low power because I live in a subdivision, and if I turn my amplifier on, I'm going to bother my neighbors, and I prefer not to do that. But actually, there's some quite a lot of pleasure in running low power because you're forced to search and pounce quite a bit. And of course, the part of that is part of the fun of that is that you can kind of pick and choose who you're gonna work, you don't. The result is I end up working a lot more exotic DX and get a lot more multipliers than a lot of other people. You're just sitting there running. You can't choose who's going to call you, So anyway, that's just part of the fun.
I wanted to mention, it's just coming up to the hour here, 8 o'clock. So we'll shut her down momentarily, but I wanted to mention that Andy and I received another request for membership today for the Island HF Radio Association. And this is 119, I believe, which is pretty incredible because we've just been around for a year and a half. And so this is WA4VMF, Georgia. And so Andy and I have this discussion all the time. Well, do we want these Yanks in here and all the rest of that sort of stuff? No. I'm always saying yes. The more the merrier, So I asked this fellow, his name's Wyatt Walker, and I said, Wyatt, how did you find out about us? And he sent me this email. Glenn, I worked VE9 CGV/VE3 Stewart. Then he sent me a wonderful QSL card on the internet, and I loved it. So I went looking for a QSL creator, and it took me to the webpage Island HF Radio Association. Still looking on finding out how to make internet QSL cards, though. I'm looking forward to talking to members on HF. Love to rag shoot. So I think that's great. If you happen to hear him, talk to him. He loves to rag shoot. Some of us love to contest. Some of us are really into POTA. Some of us are into the digital stuff. If any of you want to get into digital stuff, ask Joseph. He's on the call tonight. Island HF is really for everybody and anybody. The newbie years. And I'm delighted to see as many of you here this evening. It's absolutely fabulous. And if you ever have any suggestions, please send them along. If you want to make a presentation, please send your ideas along. Because as you all know, as radio amateurs, sometimes it gets a little lonely in the shack. So when you get a chance to get on a multi or get on to a call like this tonight and find out, oh, that's what Mullis looks like. Okay, next time I see him up in Qualicum Beach, I'll be able to say hello, Don, that sort of thing, right? So, it's Island HF Radio Association is growing. As you all know, no board of directors, no fees. and your input is important, even if it's a Zoom call. And so, yeah, keep in touch.
As long as you don't have a code of conduct.
Nope, we don't. We don't.
Nobody'd have me.
Yeah.
I got a quick question for Jim, if I may.
Yep. Go ahead.
In the CW contest, like the one that was just in, do you use a keyboard keyer?
Well, I have a hand key beside me for when things go awry. Normally, I can do everything on the keyboard. If normal QSOs just go through the F1s and whatever I type into it, right?
Yeah.
And that's in
But-
one and one MM.
Yeah, but if there's some mistake or somebody, or if I want to send, if it's a familiar call to me that I'm friends with, I'll just send a little something on the hand key and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. Just a comment for Yvonne and Tony and others that were discussing how to get into contesting, because it is very intimidating sometimes with the high speeds and so on. Glenn, you mentioned POTA. POTA is like a mini contest that runs all the time. If it's on CW, it's very slow. Sideband, people are polite, and you can sort of get a feel for what contesting is like. It's got a spotting site, so it's an entry level to a real contest.
Good suggestion, Alan. Thank you very much. Yeah.
One comment. I have been a hand for 5 years. I got into contesting very early because my illness kind of pushed me into it. Thanks to Gabor, I did attend his site last Christmas and do a sideband, and I visited this weekend for the CW. I wish Gabor would say something about the CW contest, because I was totally amazed and blown away about the skill, power, and the people at his station, at Dwayne's station. Back to you.
So get yourself off mute there and speak up there, Gabor.
You're still on mute.
Unmute.
CW operator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unmute.
Hit your space bar, dude.
There you go.
There you go.
Any better? How
Yep.
copy now?
Yep.
Okay, can you hear me all right? Should I speak up?
That's
Good.
pretty
That's good
good.
if you're close.
Okay, I think this computer has a crappy microphone. Yeah, we did pretty good. Thanks, Yvonne, for coming by, and John came by too. We had 4 guys from the mainland, I think. 5. Yeah, Keith, Neil, VA7RR, Gary, and the twins, VA7AO and O. And conditions were pretty good. We did all right. I meant to jump in for Jim 10 meters, like near the end of the contest. What happened is our operator was more impressed with working DX than getting a high score. So sometimes you got to pay attention. You think you can work China and Singapore and stuff, but you actually are more effective working just running US, because you get more points. Everybody likes to work the DX, but you got to look at the bottom line. You got to make more contacts. That's where the points are. Sorry, I got a crappy laptop in the corner. So yeah, we did pretty good, I think. 300 Qs, and conditions were fairly good. So there you go. There's my comment, Yvonne. Nice to see you on.
You are such a great station manager, Gabor. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks once again, folks. All joining. This is fabulous. We're going to try to continue with the Zoom calls in the new year. And Tony, if you get a chance to come out to the guys out there too, and you'll be able to ask all the questions you want. Okay, you can probably turn off. Have you turned off the recording there, Andy?